Hello everybody, welcome to the NPTEL course on Customer Relationship Management. This is Dr. Shagata Chatterjee from IIT Kharagpur, Vijisom, who is taking this course for you. We are discussing co-creation, secret sauce to success, and till the last video we have discussed about the different objectives of co-creation. Today I will talk about the co-creation value. So, what is co-creation value? So, according to Kotler, market value is based on owning the products as well as providing services. So, both owning the product and getting the service, consuming a service creates value. But services are perceived as a vital source of value creation, and co-creation is a fundamental element of this service dominant logic. So, recent times people have started talking about that there is nothing called product, everything is solution. You are selling TV is not a product. Only buying TV does not help anything until and unless there is a connection, there is a TV connection or cable connection there. So, TV with the cable connection solves the problem, and what is the problem? The problem is entertainment. The lack of entertainment, that is the problem, which is getting solved by the television and the associated internet, probably the cable connection, and in that cable connection good quality of entertainment products. All these three things together creates TV. So, people have replaced TV today's world because they have Netflix, they do not have to buy a new TV, new screen probably. If the good content can be available in your hand, and you can personally consume that, you do not have to share with somebody else, then why will you require TV? So, TV is having huge kind of competition with these guys, and they are creating their own solutions. So, the product market, all I am trying to say is the product market, that kind of a view that I have to create a very good product is not anymore there. You have to create a very good solution for a problem for the customers. So, that has become the major focus right now, and that particular focus is called service dominant logic. It says that the dominance is of service, the solution that you provide. The product is the tool through which you provide the solution, but ultimately you have to focus on the solution providing part, and co-creation is one of the major role in that. So, value creation takes place when customer and organization are together involved. The created value is absolute to every customer and sustainable to organization. So, these are some of the back end thing where this particular co-creation creates value. So, Gustafsson emphasizes, another researcher emphasizes on the importance of organizations to work together with their customers during the development process, because the value creation processes are difficult to understand, and branding on the value activities in an organization depends on interactions between customer and company. So, all these researchers for quite some time were saying that this co-creation, whenever you are trying to create a solution for the customer, the value is created from a solution, right. So, whenever you are trying to create a solution from the customer, you have to involve the customer, you have to wear their shoes, you have to wear their spectacles, so that you walk their path, you see what they see. And if you are not able to do that, oftentimes it is very difficult for a marketing manager, a product development manager, a R&D engineer to understand what customers want. Why don't you bring the customer in the production process or in the value co-creation process? So, value creation process. If you can bring in the customers in the value creation process, then that is co-creation. So, there are four terms given by Prahlad and Ramaswamy. Prahlad is a very well known researcher in the area of marketing, mostly in bottom of pyramid market, but this is not specific to bottom of pyramid market, this is specific to any co-creating market, where they have given a DART model. So, DART model is a very classic model of co-creation. There are 4 steps of involving a customer in your co-creation process. One is dialogue, then access, risk assessment and transparency. So, DART, D for dialogue, A for access, R for risk assessment and T for transparency. Let us talk about that. What is DART? So, dialogue is a dialogue between companies and consumers, leads to knowledge sharing and an increased understanding between the two. Multiple opportunities are given to customers to introduce their ideas and views in the value creation process. This is very straightforward. So, the more you talk with the customers, the better you understand the customers, and to talk with the customers, it must be multiple communication and through multiple channels also sometimes, because if you bring in the customer every time. So, for quite some time these product companies used to do is focus group interviews or focus group discussions, where they used to bring in 10-15 customers. They will sit in a single room and they will discuss with each other about the problems and solutions. Now, some customers might be not very I would say habituated in terms of talking like this. Some customers might be a little bit shy. Some customers might want to give their opinion, but being dominated by other customers in that focus group. So, every time you do focus group cannot give you the solution that is required. So, sometimes what is better to do is to create a knowledge sharing platform where customers can come together. Sometimes we have to create multiple such communication moments of truths, where you can tap them through a website, you can call them, you can ask them to create something for you. So, all of these things will create a communication between you and your customer. So, dialogue is a very important factor, that is why. Next step is access. So, what is access? Goal of a consumer is to assess I would say. So, access a desirable experience, not only ownership. So, access is very important. So, they want, not always they want ownership of a particular thing, they want access to a particular solution. Companies can expand on their business opportunities by involving customers' views at multiple points of interaction. One of the classic example is, let us say, Uber. Like Uber and all these guys have not given you ownership of this particular car. They have given you access to a taxi or access to a car. So, oftentimes you can probably, if you want, you can ask for a sedan, or if you can ask for a very premier sedan, or very, I would say, a car which is a fancy car. That access is there in your mobile phone, and you can ask for it. That also gives you certain kind of, that not exactly co-creation, but gives you some kind of customer empowerment. So, customer empowerment is a very key outcome of this co-creation process. The first one is also empowerment, but there some customers gets empowered, but in the access part many customers gets empowered. Not all customers actually go and talk to Uber that Uber, you should do this, you should do that, this is how you should improve your products. So, dialogue is less common. What is more common is getting access. So, that becomes very important part of co-creation process. So, you have to allow the customers to change the product and offerings in the solution as per their need. The platforms that Print Vista or Presto gives, where you can put your design and can print your own t-shirts or caps or mugs or probably the visiting cards, is also they are giving you access in the design making process. You do not own it. You cannot say that, okay, you cannot say that you have to make 500 or 600, or whenever I give you order, you have to make that. You do not own their production process, but you have access to their production process. You can ask for it and you can rent it out. So, that kind of thing is called access. The third one is risks assessment. So, involving the customers to share the responsibility of value creation makes them more curious and detail oriented. So, they want to know, when you ask them that why don't you put your thoughts, they will want to know that, okay, what are the various things that I should know when you are asking me to create a product. So, they ask for probable risk of products and services, but they also want to share the responsibility to deal with those risks. So, oftentimes there can be products which might be risky. For example, let us say you are asking them to how to design a Barbie doll. Now, Barbie dolls, various designing products that you can put on Barbie doll might be risky. There can be a small thing which can go to the kid's nose and etc., etc. But if you allow them to decide that whether they are ready to take that risk or not, whether they need that kind of a customization on Barbie doll or not, that then they also share the responsibility of taking that risk. So, if you have risks, tell them about those risks, let them assess the risk and then let them take the decision, so that it does not come back onto you. So, that is also a major co-creation process, like mutual funds too. Mutual funds ideal, no, they do not always do that, but they should do, and that is a very important co-creation process, that you tell them that this is the risk involved, this is what happened, become as transparent as possible, ask them to take an informed decision. So, oftentimes the use for a short term sales perspective, this risk assessment can be detrimental, but a long term customer relationship management perspective, where you want your customers to be with you for a longer period of time, you cannot do a sales, you cannot hide value. So, for this kind of misconception we have about marketing, that in marketing people think that the only job of marketing is to sell. So, whatever you have, and sometimes I will just say this, that sometimes I have seen people in LinkedIn who are at the level of the director marketing of a organization also openly says that the objective of marketing is to sell a product irrespective of whatever it is, and that is not true. That is absolutely not true. That's saying that is like saying that the objective of creating working on science research is to create something which will create wealth, whether by killing people or not killing people, does not matter, you have to create wealth. That is not the objective of marketing. So, the objective of marketing to create the base solution, the basic marketing 101 example, the definition of marketing says that you have to create value for the customers, that is the value creation process is marketing. So, you have to communicate, deliver the value which will be beneficial both for the customer and for the company. Now, if there is certain risk involved in the product, in the short term, if you hide that risks, do not involve the customers in the risk taking, hide the risk, and customer has to take the risk unwillingly in those kind of situations, because we have already hidden the risk, that will create a short term relationship. And in a short term relationship, the company gets benefited, the company gets benefited short term, the customer does not get benefited at all. But when it is a long term relationship, generally it is a win-win situation. So, you have to bring into that kind of a situation, and risk assessment is one step. Further bigger step is transparency. The consumers are becoming highly active and informed. So, transparency plays an important role in building trust between organization and customers. So, you have to be as transparent as possible with your customers, so that they know that okay, I know I can depend on this particular service provider, I can rely on them, the trust is there. So, that kind of a system you have to create. So, dialogue, access, risk assessment and transparency are the four major steps in the co-creation and learning process. So, this has been given by Prahlad and Ramaswamy and also K.B. Achilles. Now, there are various types of co-creation, I will discuss about that a little bit. So, co-creation, as I told, that customers comes together now and create certain solutions for themselves only. Now, this categorization of co-creation has been done based on how much you allow customers to create information and who decides to create ideas or innovations, and who decides which idea and innovation will be ultimately shortlisted. So, idea creation and idea refinement, not always refinement, I would say shortlisting and prototyping. In these two different processes, how much the customers are involved and how much it is controlled by the company and no customers are involved, that degree decides this categorization. So, if you check this particular thing, the contribution activity and the selection activity. In the contribution activity, there is, when it is open, that means more customers are involved. When it is fixed, then less number of customers are involved, or probably they are not involved at all. On the other hand, selection activity, when it is firm led or customer led. When the selection is customer led, then selection activity is more open. When it is firm led, it is more closed. So, based on this thing, there are four, I would say, quadrants gets created, 4 boxes gets created, and collaborating is the topmost box when it is absolutely customer driven. Everything is customer driven. Customers have the power to collectively develop and improve a new product's core components and underlying structure. So, they can they contribute openly and they select openly as well. So, it is absolutely open for the customers. Classic examples will be the developers, for example, Android developers. Android developers, there is a platform given, you can develop on that and you can select on that also which one will be there, which one will not be there. You can put comments on that. Some people, some things are discontinued, some things are there. So, that is collaborating. What is tinkering? Where customers make modifications to a commercially available product and some of these modifications are incorporated into subsequent product releases. So, you allow the customers to do modifications as per their need. Now, that modification is very personal to you, not other customers cannot see those, or oftentimes they do not have access to those modifications. Now, the company can see what modifications all the customers have made. So, company what they will do is, they will select some of the modifications from that and then they will improve the product to a better form. So, that is called tinkering. So, the idea generation, the contribution is open for everybody, but that contribution is not visible to everybody. Your contribution is not visible to another customer's contribution. Another customer's contribution is not visible to you or other customers. That is only visible to the firm, and the firm can choose out of these many contributions which one will be chosen. So, that is called tinkering. On the other hand, what is co-designing? Where some people, some designers, in most of the cases, some specific designers, hand chosen designers, fixed set of customers or designers make the contributions, but the choices are made by open market. So, let us say a relatively small group of customers provides a firm with most of its new product content or designs, while a larger group of customers helps select with content or designs that should be adopted. So, the contribution is done by small designers, let us say 10-15 designers, but liking or disliking those contributions is done by the open market. And submitting is when both are small, like it is firm led, customers directly communicate ideas with new product offerings to the firm, it is firm's call whether to take that or not. So, you call the customer firm and say that these are the product idea, there is nobody else can listen to that, and it is the firm's call. So, let us take some examples how these things are actually adopted in the real world. So, collaboration, as I told, is firm led, is customer led, and it grants customers almost unlimited freedom to alter the underlying product, thereby transforming customers from passive user to active contributors. Collaborating as the form of co-creation that offers customers the greatest power to contribute their own ideas and to select components that should be incorporated into the new product offering. So, basically it is a customer led, absolutely customer led, most freedom is given to the customer, that kind of an context. Heavily used by all these software companies. So, I have seen, if I will show you one example I am giving in the FMCG sector is Unilever. So, Unilever has done this open innovation platform. So, where we have a vision of a better future for our world and our business, and we want partners to share it. If you have a new design and technology that could help us grow our business and solve the challenges we have set, we would like to work with you through Open Innovation. This is a platform where people come up with new innovations and other people likes and dislikes those innovation. And based on the other people's likes and dislikes and Unilever's ability to actually commercialize that, they choose innovations from this particular platform. So, that is a very classic example of how FMCG uses it, but this is more commonly used in software market. So, let me just open this particular forum. So, Power BI is basically a BI tool that where generally people create various kinds of charts and graphs and etc. So, there this is basically this particular V is ideas.power BI where people put ideas like customers refresh timings in schedule phrase, somebody has told, and many other people have given votes, and you can also vote. You have to log in, and then you can also vote here, or like this one, options to use either light or dark interface. This is something which is heavily liked. So, people want that this kind of option has to be there, and there can be people who have said, and some of these ideas are actually implemented and some of the ideas are categorized as not implementable and etc. So, if I can share, so for example, this person has shared this idea. I do not know, I have to go to this profile, her profile actually, and to get an idea that whether this can be done. See, admin has written, this is on our roadmap, but we do not have a specific timeline to share this product. We will update this when we have more details. This has been written in August 2019, and if I am not wrong, they have probably implemented it. So, please bring back dark mode or allow people to choose which mode to prefer. So, even now people are saying that this is something that is required. Seriously, this is so ridiculous. I cannot fathom the decision making process behind having an existing dark UI and replacing it with a light one without giving the option to keep the old one. I can also can't fathom. So, people, all I am trying to say is that people have given the idea, lots of people have voted it. Some people, the admin has told that okay, we will take care of that. Now, there are various people who have created their own comments on that and also voted it. So, you have created an environment, whether this idea was good or not, that is a different story, but you have created in it an environment where people can speak up, and if people can speak out their problem. So, the contribution is coming from the users, and the voting, the selection is also happening from the users, and based on these two, the admin is trying to take a call that whether they will do it or not. So, that is a collaboration process as I was discussing. So, this kind of thing is very common in all software tools. Power BI is one example. I am just giving Power BI because that is something that I have seen in recent times, but this is very common in other examples as well. Now, tinkering I told that again customers are open to share, but it will be chosen by some people. So, tinkering is farm-led, tinkering is most visible in computer game industry, where contributions in the form of modifications are not only widely tolerated, but actively encouraged. So, they encourage that you change your design of the agent that is playing, or you bring in whatever kind of modifications you can do and this and that. And then many game manufacturers invite users to make alterations ranging from incremental changes such as edits to the physical characteristics of the person who is playing, and to more radical innovations such as creation of a completely new computer game. A classic example is Sims. So, over 90% of the content of the widely successful computer game The Sims is derived from the tinkerer based modifications. So, the mods actually basically the parlance of gamers. So, for example, if you have seen the various kinds of I would say games which is agent based games where I would say killing is involved. So, you have to have a gun, and that you shoot with that gun, you have some mission to accomplish and etc. And then you have certain bots also. The bots are your helpers in that particular. The design of the bots are oftentimes, and the performance of the bots, the capability of the bots, certain kind of movements of the bots are obtained from existing players, other players. So, you can bring in those players' characteristics, their modifications, their behaviors, etc. You can track that and create your bots like that. So, that they can also, those bots behave like human beings, as if actual human being, if they have played, this is how the game would have happened. So, that is called tinkering, heavily applied in gaming industry. Next is co-designing. So, Threadless is a t-shirt company. So, co-designing is customer led. It has a relatively fixed contribution approach, but a high degree of customer autonomy over the selection. So, the ideas are generated by the designers, but the selection is done by the customers. So, Threadless contributions to Threadless must be submitted using a company issued template, can contain only limited text and also constrained to 8 sanctioned colors. So, all these designs and etc., the contribution is more controlled. You cannot give lots of independence there. Co-designing contributions are considerably more fixed and constrained, as I told. Here, co-designing provides customers considerable autonomy in terms of the selection of the process. So, you can, while the design has to be in a certain form, the font is fixed, the colors are fixed, but within that platform, within that framework, when you submit the designs, those designs are accepted by a open lot of customers. So, contributions that Threadless selects to print as a new t-shirt design are almost exclusively determined by ratings provided by customers. So, like the one that I go to Power BI, they decide whether to allow customers to decide or not, and the product ideas or modification ideas are also open there. Here the modification ideas are not very open, there are some constraint fixed thing that you can do, but the selection procedure is open. There is one huge advantage of that is that if the customers are selecting, you do not need a person in your product design team who will focus on the selection process. You are letting the customers to decide. So, if the customers decides, then the chances of they will adopt their decision, they will buy their decisions are pretty high. So, that is the co-designing part. So, this is how it happens. So, each week 1,000 or more designers submit graphics to threadless.com website, and the Threadless checks them for copyright. So, you have to ensure that the designs do not have copyright issues or not, and to assure a level of quality narrows them down to around 100. So, from 1,000 it becomes to 100 and puts them to a selection up website. Now, out of these hundreds, people actually give 1 to 5 point scale whether I will buy it or not, and the week's top 6 to 8 vote getters go out for production. So, as simple as that, you get designs, shortlist them up to 100 based on only quality issues and probably technical issues like copyright and etc., and then you give it to the market to choose. Designers whose ideas are selected get $2,500. So, that is not a pretty good amount, I would say. So, that is the so you are involving the designers, you are encouraging the designers with that price and a chance for more rewards as best tea of the month here. So, best tea of the month will get $25,000. Threadless gets a license to print shirts on that particular design. So, that is the process in which you are bringing in designers, and oftentimes the designers can be the users themselves. So, I like Threadless and I like to contribute to Threadless. So, that creates a code creation process where customer and the company starts talking with each other, and probably some amount of customer relationships are getting generated. And the last one is submitting. Submitting is majorly firm led. It is a type of co-creation that the minimum amount of customer autonomy in terms of both new product development is given. One of the classic example is basically mystarbucksideas.com, where you can put your idea and Starbucks can actually choose from those ideas. Nobody comes to know about somebody else's idea. So, some of the examples are given here. There are 277 ideas brought to life as of now, and the ideas launched per year is slowly moving. So, this is the old data 2012 from a case study, but it is still moving ahead. So, in the next part of this thing, we will talk about 4 principles of co-creation. Stakeholders will only participate. So, how you can engage people in the co-creation process. So, people will co-create only when they think that this co-creation is giving them value. So, you are doing co-creation so that you can create value, but how will you make sure that people will come to this co-creation process? You have to understand that people also has to feel that this process will help them create some value. So, what kind of value? One is psychological value, increased self-esteem. So, if I know that my design is getting used, then that gives me a increased boost up about myself. So, that is a psychological value that gets created. That is why those award system, accolades, recognitions are important. Economic value. So, I can earn from these designs, I can earn from the license selling or from any kind of royalties and etc. So, for example, the classic examples are all these publishing house. All the publishing house rely on the writers because they give royalties to those writers, or in this case designers can also be thought about as somebody who is more focused on the higher earnings. So, economic value of the customers also is important, and economic value for organizations. If organizations are coming up with these ideas, for example, that will lower their cost, higher their productivity, increase their productivity and increase their revenue. If stakeholders rather than the customers, stakeholders come together and create a solution for you. So, for example, in a B2B environment, if the customer comes in and creates a solution along with let us say Caterpillar. Caterpillar produces lots of products. Now, this produces the products and tries to sell it off. Now, if they can create a combination with collaboration with their partners, where the companies, the customers who are B2B companies comes together with Caterpillar, talks about their problems, Caterpillar creates a customized solution for them, charges them more, but create a customized solution for them and put them in the production process also. So, then the B2B customer will know that okay, whatever is being built will lower my cost, increase my productivity and increase my revenue. So, that kind of advantage value creation will happen for the B2B customer also. So, economic value creation for the designer or for the B2B customer has to be there, and opportunity to do a social good, that kind of a feeling you can bring in to this market. So, again some of the examples that I will try to give quickly. La Poste, the French postal service, is an example of multiple stakeholders co-creation. So, what they do? They have 3 obstacles: unmotivated, unionized tellers. Tellers means the people who are sitting in that post office, with tightly defined jobs, dissatisfied customers due to long wait time and agitated local managers. So, the employers were not happy because they had nothing to do, they were very boring job. The customers were dissatisfied because these guys are not very energetic, so they are not doing it faster. So, they had to wait for a longer period of time, and local managers were also agitated. So, so basically it was a very bad situation. So, how to solve that? What La Poste did, so the La Poste leaders asked tellers and managers of post office to talk with local customers about how to reach those goals. So, how to reach these 4 goals, I would say. Tellers were given a say in their own work schedules, and they all jointly decide when office should open and the space arrangement. So, they have given the right to do the space arrangement, the office timing and etc. in the hand of the employees. So, that employees can work as per the market's need. So, what happened is customer waiting time reduced by 50%, because now tellers know that this is the time period when I have to be very active, and those are the other time periods I can go home. So, rather than being bored at home at the office when no footfall is happening, I will be more productive at certain time period. less productive or will do something else in some other time periods. So, we cut down the customer waiting time by 50% and customer satisfaction and job satisfaction both improved. So, here you actually enable the customers and the employees together to create a solution. So, that is a co-creation process. Another example is Harvard Business Review. Focus on the experience of all stakeholders for finest value creation. So, that is the second important principle of co-creation. The first important co-creation was stakeholders will only participate genuinely if there is a value for them. So, you have to create value for your co-creating stakeholders. The second co-creation principle is focus on the experience of all stakeholders for finest value creation. So, experience becomes very important. Experience at a work is a function of our interactions with our colleagues, our bosses, our subordinates. So, everybody should have a very good experience while creating this co-creation. What is a classic example again? So, 24/7 was a customer firm, it is a BPO basically. So, there were lots of guys who answers to phone calls and etc., and they have very boring life sometimes in terms of the job, I would say. So, they sometimes becomes very dissatisfied, the long working hours makes them very I would say long working hours make them very tired or less passionate about their work. But you have to also understand that they are the primary source of problems that the customers are facing. So, whenever customers are facing some problem, they call to 24/7 and that call comes to this BPO telecallers. Now, what they did is they put this is a room, there are 15-20 telecallers are working, they put a board on that and they ask the telecallers that whenever you find something interesting, you can go and write that. And then if you go and write that and there is a design team or AI team which will be sitting in that particular room all day, whenever some interesting idea comes up, he will call you up and discuss with you. So, in that process you are enabling the telecallers to create solutions for the company and that telecallers are connected to the actual customers. So, you are actually enabling the customers also to create solutions for the company, which create an experience both for the customer and the telecaller and the designer. This increased the productivity by 10%, turnover reduced and able to attract more college talent in this process. So, that is also a classic example of co-creation. The third principle is stakeholder must interact with one another directly. So, you have to create a face-to-face conversation with them. Just as sequential and hierarchical, so the more you bring in levels, the more you bring in hierarchy, the major is the problem. So, we will talk about this particular problem in a different video in great detail, but today I will just give you just tell you that that is one issue. And the fourth one is providing platforms to stakeholders to interact and share their experience. If face to face conversation is not possible, first of all you have to remove hierarchy, but even after removing hierarchy, that face to face conversation is not possible, try to give them the platform where they can talk. For example, IDClick, an intranet site at Orange. Orange is a company and they have created this intranet. Intranet means within the company they have created a website which cannot be accessed from outside. Motivates employees to submit ideas for improving process and redesigning products. Employees can promote ideas through a blog and gain rewards through a point system by commenting on their ideas. So, Orange actually allowed their employees. Now, you have to understand some of the employees of Orange are probably the customers of Orange as well. So, they enabled their customers to share their ideas, share their feelings in a intranet. So, that even if face to face communication with the design team is not possible, you have a platform where you can talk. So, these are the basic 4 principles of co-creation that is there. So, co-creation is a shift from IT mindset to product mindset and you have to discuss on that. So, I will stop this particular video at this point. In the next video, we will continue from this point and we will complete co-creation. And in the next week, we will be extending that how all these things that you have learned will actually be used in a customer relationship building process. You know that CRM is important, you know that co-creation is important, but how to do it is something that we will discuss in the next week. Thank you very much for being with me. I will see you in the next video.